Hey, good evening and welcome to Midweek at 3 and 1. I'm Pastor Rick. Good to have you here. And we are picking up on our series of sermons entitled, I Just Don't Know What to Do. And I just don't know what to do when. And we started out the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about when God says to wait. Well, this week, God tells us to listen. I don't know what to do when we listen. So if you were with us yesterday or earlier in the week on Sunday, then you know that we read from Exodus 3, verses 1 to 17. This is the story of Moses in a burning bush. Now, I'm not going to go back and reread all that, but each week we're going to touch a little bit more on how we listen or how we wait on God. Now, actually, if you want, you can actually message us, send us questions, and maybe we will review them, and we will have time to at least respond in one way or another. I'm hoping to do that with all the folks in the church too when we finish this. So this evening, what do you do when God says, listen? You know, we're a society that doesn't listen much. We don't listen. But in that Exodus story, Moses stood and listened even when his life was a mess. You say, well, Rick, how was his life? It was a mess. Well, first of all, he's out there in the wilderness, and he's out there because he's committed murder, and he's running away. And God said, I need to talk to you. So God looks at him, and he says, hey, when we look at the scripture, he says, hey, take off your sandals, as God approached the burning bush. He said, because you're standing on holy ground. So, and understanding that removing your shoes when entering a holy place of divine presence and honoring the holiness of the ground was not unusual to folks of that time. That was a common practice. We now leave our shoes on. Many of you at home may have that ritual at home that you come in the door, you immediately take your shoes off. The question is for today, though, in what ways do we honor God's holiness in our personal life and in the life of the church? What are some of the ways? When I was a kid, you would not have come up through the altar rail just for no reason. You would have been quiet in church. Now we sing, dance, and jump in church, if that's appropriate. There are new ways to honor God's holiness. Remember, holiness means set apart and unique. Don't write moralism into that. So also in this scripture, one of the things that we had to look at was God he was concerned about the suffering of the Israelites. Folks, God is concerned about our suffering today. Our neighbors, our communities, some of you, some of us are suffering. And yet, we're not listening to God like Moses did. In fact, we've tuned him out. We've said we've got the Bluetooth on so we can't hear. We're not listening when God says, my people are suffering and he will take care of us. All we hear are voices saying, divide more, divide more. Scripture also highlights God uses people around us in special ways to grab our attention. Have you ever experienced that kind of help? I hope you have. I hope our church is doing that. I hope when we're called and you're at the food pantry and getting our food, or you're at the mission and you need diapers and wipes, understand there are people looking to reach out to you and do it because that's what God calls us to be doing. So the challenge is this then for the rest of this week. Has God ever called you to a situation outside your comfort zone? How'd you handle it? Did you listen to God or did you figure out for yourself? Did you open People magazine? Did you watch TV to see what they would say? Did you see what was politically right? Or did you listen for God? See, because like Moses, we should be listening. See, what are some of the common excuses? Moses kept saying, I can't do it. He said he couldn't do it because he had a speech impediment. He couldn't do it without his brother Aaron. It was everything in his life. He couldn't do it because if he went there, the people wouldn't know the name of God. He needed the name of God. What excuses are we turning out? See, these are the things that we're called to be doing. So for this week, how can we spend time with God so we don't lose our direction? How can we make sure we are listening to God and not listening to the world? Hope to see you on Sunday for our next question in the series on I Just Don't Know What to Do. See us again soon. Glad you dropped by.